Hello, this is Anastasia, and welcome to another edition of What's Next in the world of technology where everything is changing at such a rapid speed. You're hearing about this digital adoption that has already been on track, right, for many organizations that have been working on it. But I think with COVID-19, a lot of organizations have had to sit up and take what they were planning 18 months ago and fast track into the world that we're living today, because it's a very different world that's emerging, that pre-COVID to after COVID, and certainly many companies have had to adapt. So I'm really excited to welcome Malebona Mokhutsoane, who is the Solutions Advisor for Mid-Market at SAP Africa. And Malebona, it's great to chat to you. Welcome onto What's Next. So when they say Solutions Advisor, are you the smart person that they come to and they say, Malebona, please help us solve this problem? I guess that's what I'm getting at. You're the kind of person that has to be creative, finding different solutions, right?
Yeah, so my area of specialty currently is the analytics and the data warehousing area.
Okay.
So I'm supposed to be your subject matter expert in that area.
Oh
So
my
to
word.
give you advisory in terms of product value, in terms of your roadmap, if you're thinking, for example, to adopt new technology. So yeah, the list goes on and on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I mean, when you look at what my introduction was about, are you in agreement that, many organizations are fast tracking what was already on the roadmap to do, and they think, hey, this has forced us to change the way we do business. Are you seeing that with many organizations?
Yes. Especially in terms of what we do as SAP, especially in my area, right?
Mm.
So I think the whole analytics idea is what value can I harvest from the data that I have, right? So in terms of organizations fast tracking any sort of plans that they had, they
Yes.
need to be more thorough, quicker analysis now than they've ever had to do,
Aha.
because they have to be very nimble in terms of how they're reacting to this whole COVID situation.
Well, if you see me running, I'm certainly not nimble, but in the world of technology, you've got to be nimble, right? So, I love big data. I love analytics. Now, you guys are using a fancy term at SAP called augmented analytics. What on earth is augmented analytics?
Well, I'm just gonna take you back a bit so that you just see where we've come from, where we used to be. So, up until we introduced the concept of augmented analytics, right? Analytics had just always been known to provide your dashboards, your reporting, just to do data discovery. And as time went on, we introduced Agile BI, right? But now we have an additional element. So in a way, we've introduced a different spectrum. And this spectrum involves bringing together the human authored side of analytics with a machine guided side of analytics. So this machine guided spectrum, what it brings, Aki, is quite interesting. Um, in addition to, as I've mentioned, what the traditional analytics brings, this brings your predictive and prescriptive analytics. It brings what we call natural language querying and processing, and it's able to give you explanations and suggestions based on a specific point of interest in your data.
Wow.
So what I mean, let me just give you an example. So looking at this whole suggestions or explanations, it means that it can tell you what is contributing to a specific data point. Why is it high? Why is it low? Why are there variances? And this is all about what? Giving you a way to have a follow on action from that. So, not just analyzing and diagnosing what happened, but what do I do next?
Okay.
So, in essence, yeah, it's just bringing together that machine learning automation and your human intelligence throughout your analytics life cycle.
See, that's fascinating. I mean, it sounds to me like it's analytics on steroids, basically, and
Really?
pulling all the different facets that make up analytics to give you, I guess, more precise information. I mean, why now? Why is this happening now? I guess many industries are demanding it, but can you explain to us what's driven SAP to get to augmented analytics where we are now?
Well, what we've always known in terms of the way we traditionally did tasks such as your data discovery, right?
Yeah.
That's a task that ends up being open to a lot of flaws, such as human bias. You choose what you want to analyze. It's not very objective, I should
Mm,
say.
mm,
And there was also the issues of delayed insights, and also not knowing what should be next, not knowing what the next steps are, because it only brings you to that point of diagnosing what has happened.
right.
But now, as you mentioned as well in your introduction, that organizations are now striving for digital innovation. And with this, they have buckets and buckets of data. I mean, we live in an era of data.
Yeah.
And it's not just data, as you mentioned, it's big data.
Yes.
And all these data sets have become so huge, they're complex, they are fast moving, they just keep coming in and in. And the traditional BI solutions that we have, they just can't handle that. And at this point in the business world, we can all agree that data analytics is good for business and has the potential to drastically increase your traction and your revenue, but only if done properly, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Because in the world of analytics, it's not exactly the easiest thing to pull off in the real world, right?
Yeah.
So
Especially in real time, right?
yes, exactly. So how do we now get these actionable insights, right? How do we get insights that can give us a suggestion as to what you need to do next?
Mm.
So traditionally, this had been a role of traditional data scientists. So as a BI analyst, for example, you get up to that point of diagnosing, okay, this is what happened. This is the analysis that I've done. And then the data scientist takes it from there and does what we used to call, or what we still call actually, advanced analytics, right?
Right.
But
Right.
unfortunately, the role of a data scientist is not very common yet in the market, right? They're quite scarce in terms of skill, in terms
Mm-hmm.
of finding very highly skilled data scientists. So what augmented analytics does is it relieves the company's dependence on having a data scientist
Ah.
by automating insight generation in this company through the use of machine learning and your artificial intelligence algorithms.
Mm.
But actually, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that data scientists are obsolete. But what the augmented analytics capability does is it places that capability, that those advanced analytics, in the hands of a wider workforce.
Okay.
So this way, the users just need to know their data. They don't need to know the complexities of the technology, because it can get quite complex and intimidating,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Well,
The result, mhm.
you nearly gave a few
Sorry.
data scientists a heart attack there earlier.
Yes, that's why I had to put that disclaimer there.
So
Yeah.
I mean, I want you. I find this fascinating because you've mentioned a few of the buzzwords and you touched on them very briefly earlier. You know, the likes of machine learning, which you just mentioned. Now you talk about predictive analytics and algorithms, and there's the human element of it. What actually makes up? If you can just go a little bit deeper, what actually makes up augmented analytics?
So the baseline for augmented analytics will always is traditional BI, right?
Okay.
In addition to that usual data analytics that we have, as I mentioned, that we've now added a different spectrum, and the spectrum includes machine learning and natural language processing. So machine learning is a branch of artificial intelligence. So it provides the ability to look for patterns in data through iterative learnings. So
Mm.
it looks at, say, for example, your shopping habits
Yes.
over time, what it is that you're doing. And from there, it's able to do what? to suggest, oh, you've been buying this every Wednesday. Okay, this Wednesday, do you want to add this to your shopping cart? So, I mean, when you bring it back to the organizations, they already have a lot of data. They already have a lot of history because
Mm.
they've been in business, for example, right? And for machine learning to be able to give you those suggestions, it needs that historical data to learn the trends and the patterns in your data. Because
Okay.
from there, that's where it can generate then the insights and the suggestions that it can make, right?
Okay.
Because, excuse me, as I mentioned, that now the intention of augmented analytics is to remove the complexities of the underlying technologies so that it makes it what easier to interact with. So
Okay.
now that is where the natural language processing comes to play. The use of natural language processing is what is sometimes called conversational analytics, right? So this means you go in, you're able to use the way you and I are talking now.
It's
So
not
the way
conversational analytics. That's not conversational analytics. But what you're saying, and you're so great at describing it. What you're saying is that the technology is Apple to pick up the natural conversation we're having and turn it
Mhm.
into data and computer language, right?
Yes,
Aha,
yes.
I got it then. Oh, okay, that makes so much sense. So it's almost becoming natural and intuitive to understand in real time what it's doing. But I guess when you look at the software capabilities of augmented analytics, for example, versus the customer adoption of augmented analytics, is there like a massive gap between the two? I mean, when you compare the two, what do you see?
Mhm. So, luckily, with the work that we're doing at SAP, I can vouch for and say that augmented analytics is no longer a concept or an upcoming big thing. It is here and it's growing at a rapid rate.
Wow.
So, just as a starting point, if you have a truly intelligent augmented analytics system to start with, right? From the beginning, it needs to help the user from the moment that they begin to interact with it.
Mm,
So that would be an initial, for example, stage would be your data ingestion, right?
yes.
So this should become radically simplified. So instead of having you as the user cleaning up the data, trying to figure out where the data sources fit together or which data sources to choose to mesh up, the artificial intelligence components are able to do that heavy lifting for you,
Aha.
right? So just to make it more relatable, as with new technology, there needs to be a change management process in an organizational setup, right?
Right.
So it's just like, for example, when you have a new flashy smartphone, and then you only find out years later about a feature that you could have used, because gone are the days where we read manuals. You only pick up a manual if something is wrong with the device.
It's
We
so
no
true.
longer do the manual before. So for some users, augmented analytics just feels like that latest flashy technology, and they really just end up using it as much as they're comfortable with, so not going beyond. And well, it also depends on the type of user, to be honest, but
Right.
with the more business oriented users, they are still getting into that process of radical change, if I should put it that way.
Yes, yes. Okay,
Mhm.
well, no, that makes perfect sense. But I mean, the reality as well as Malebona is that it's quite scary when you have this technology becoming so real and becoming so, starting to predict things. And I guess we can look at it in two ways. We can be scared and say, I'm not going to do this because this is a bit freaky and it's becoming too realistic and there's not enough human interaction or whatever. Or we can say, well, we're going to welcome it with open arms because it's going to make our jobs easier and help our businesses. And I guess, how do you improve that adoption of awareness for the power of augmented analytics that we've been talking about without people being, I guess, frightened about it?
Yeah. I think the new way of working that's being brought about by these whole self-service initiatives as well
Mm,
is that we find that it's not enough to just have a small team that is able to get at the data and analyze it for insights,
right.
which would be, for example, your BI analyst or your data scientist, right? If data is the new oil, and it's this money making resource, it means what everyone needs to have access to it, right?
Mm, mm,
So the data access firstly has to be evened out. So the stakeholders from just across the company need to be able to access these self-service solutions and find answers that matter to them, right? And also being able to ingest this data that's sitting at all sorts of places, offsite, third-party databases, needs to be easy and secure and not resource intensive for IT, which is supporting, right, the
right.
process. And most importantly, I always laugh when I think about this. It's about real time. We keep talking about real time. Insights need to be revealed quickly, instantly. We don't want to wait
Mm,
for days, weeks, so that we can what? Be able to share what is up to date. Okay.
okay.
The the big intent here would be what to get like the insights on a scale that the business needs them, right? And where the business needs them and when they need them, which is the whole real time aspect of it, right? And excuse me, to do this, users need that self service tool that is firstly easy to understand. And Aki, what we are seeing and what we are also doing as SAP is that we're seeing more and more applications enabling embedded insights. And these embedded insights now go beyond your normal reporting, which would just be like drawing up a list report, but actually provide further capabilities such as your forecasting or even making suggestion capabilities. Right? So embedding that advanced analytics capability within the process. So embedding these into these everyday applications, what it means is that the insights become contextual to what you're doing.
Okay.
It's seamless access for the user,
And
right?
context is everything.
Yes, yes, because you don't want to have a process here that is so separated from the analysis that it makes the analysis obsolete because the process keeps running while you're busy doing the
Yeah, no,
analysis.
it's true. It's true. Well, what a fascinating world we're living in today. And I guess just listening to you and you talk about where analytics is going, augmented analytics specifically, where SAP is taking it, and bringing the elements of this real-time data with SAP HANA, and today we've got the technology to be able to crunch these numbers in real time, and that's the processing power that happens in the cloud, and it's absolutely fascinating. And I guess, organizations that don't have this capability will be left behind because their competitors are going to do that. And if you've got this real time insights on things that are happening in your organization, that's, it's most valuable information in predicting things and acting differently and reacting differently, and really, at the end of the day, being more agile.
Mhm.
Yeah. Hey, Malebona Mokhutsoane, it's been absolutely fascinating chatting to you about augmented analytics. I've certainly learned a lot of new buzzwords today. Thank you for your time. We wish you well. And I'd love to see this technology in action, because you've described this and organizations are using it, and it's certainly very exciting. This is definitely the future.
Yeah. Thank you so much for having me, Aki. It was great exploring this augmented analytics capability because I think in our daily work, we just get used to just talking technology, and sometimes it's good to just relate it a bit more.
Yeah,
Thank you.
absolutely. Thank you for your time. All the best to you.
Thank you.
Cheerio.